me pop over here, make sure. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition of the Ambassadorial Wing. I am glad y'all were able to tune in today. I am, of course, your host, the Ambassador. And with me today, I've got Mr. MK himself, Malatin, fellow member of the Grey Order, and all-around good guy. So today we're going to be discussing the first 4 episodes of Clone Wars Season 7. We'll be talking about the story arc, going over some of the things we like, some of the things we didn't particularly care for, just kind of giving a general overview of these first 4 episodes, this first story arc of the final season of Clone Wars Season 7. So, Malatin, if you want to do introductions, I should have asked you this before we started. Do you have a YouTube channel?
No, I don't have a YouTube channel. I have a Twitter.
Oh, okay.
And Instagram.
Okay.
So
you're online.
Twitter
You're just
handle.
Yeah. And we have our first person in the chat, Sir Nerdalot. Sir Nerdalot, hello, sir. Glad you could tune in today. Anyway, Malatin, if you want to give everybody your Twitter handle so they can follow you as you tweet out to the rest of the world and everything, and then we'll jump right into the topic.
It's on the screen. You can see it.
Oh. To quote Homer Simpson. Okay. Oh, this is just starting off so well, isn't it? So anyway, all right. Well, with all that being said, let's just go ahead and jump right into the topic and get into season 7, episodes 1 through 4 of Clone Wars. And Malatin, I'll let you open up the discussion. What do you want to talk about first?
So we can start with episode 1. Excuse me, but I have to remember stuff because I watched it when it was coming out. So we start off with Anakin and Obi-Wan preparing the stormtroopers to head out, and we see Rex dealing with some stuff, but we don't know what it is. Then we find out about the introduction to the Bad Batch to go on a mission, and Rex notices something familiar with the strategy of the Separatists, and we get to find out what that is. So, you, Kara.
The thing I find interesting about this first episode and this first arc of the season and everything, it is very much focused on the clones. It's not so much focused on the Jedi or anything. This kind of feeds into the whole idea of this final season is focusing on the clones, and they start right off the bat with a very clone-focused story arc. And honestly, the thing I like about this particular episode is we get a very good dynamic of who the Bad Batch is and how they kind of fit into the overall body of the Grand Army of the Republic. And the thing that I like about the Bad Batch is they are very much their own entity. They're their own unit. They kind of operate independently. You obviously have a leadership structure with the Bad Batch, or Clone Force 99 as they're known. But the impression that I get with the Bad Batch is there's more. There's some underlying things with the Bad Batch that really gives you the impression that they are very much suited to what they call in special forces terminology, wet work. And to the chat, Jeff B, thank you for tuning in, sir. Glad you could join us this afternoon. The Bad Batch gives me the impression this is very much like an elite force, almost like a SEAL team or a Delta Force from the United States, or another special forces unit from another major military body and everything in the world. Maybe like the British equivalent of the United States Navy SEALs, or one of the Delta teams or whatever. Because these guys are sent into a lot of hot spots. They deal with a lot of nasty missions. They're not your rank and file type of clone troopers, and they're each suited for a particular type of specialized skill set.
Basically,
What you have,
Black Ops. Basically,
yeah,
Black Ops of Clone Wars.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. This is very much a Black Ops or anything team that the Grand Army of the Republic has at their disposal. And I would wager this probably isn't the only Black Ops team that they have, because if you remember, I don't know if Milan, if you remember the Republic Commando video game that came out just a couple of years before Revenge of the Sith came out. Did you? Okay.
Yes.
Then you may have noticed the similarity as well, because the team structure of clone of the Bad Batch very much resembles the team makeup of the Republic Commando team. Because you've obviously got the lead commando, Delta 99, I think it is, in Republic Commando, and then of course you've got Hunter for the Bad Batch, and then you've got 3 different specialists that make up the whole squad. And it's the same deal. It's a 4-person squad in Republic Commando. It's a 4-person squad with the Bad Batch.
Yes. So let's continue. Let's carry on. So we have Hunter Wrecker. I don't know about the sharpshooter, what's called, and the
Crosshair
guy. Crosshair, the sharpshooter.
Yeah, your sniper. Yeah. Honestly, of the 4 of them, I liked Crosshair the best. This is a point I've made previously, but it's something that I want to kind of go a little more in depth. The way they designed each of these characters, they each had a different personality trait that kind of fit with their skill set. But the thing that I found interesting about Crosshair, he had that very Clint Eastwood vibe to him. He didn't talk very much, but whenever he did, it was kind of sarcastic little quips or insults or whatever. And it's kind of similar. I don't know if you ever saw the Man with No Names Westerns by Sergio Leone that starred Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
Okay, I very much got that feel. I got that impression that that's who inspired, or what was the inspiration for Crosshair. With Hunter, you get kind of a John Rambo, Sylvester Stallone's aesthetic for him, and what have you. So, Wrecker, I can't really put a finger on who he's modeled after, per se. But the impression that I got was another person had made an observation that the dynamic of the Bad Batch almost harkens back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and how that team is set up. I thought it was Lunga. I couldn't remember if it was Lunga or if it was somebody else or anything. But yeah, because honestly, I could see that as well. And honestly, I love how their skills kind of meld into one another, how they work in concert so well. And the great thing about the Bad Batch is, no matter how many times you see them on screen, you always are learning something new and something different about them. And the thing that I liked about the first episode is this was very much their episode. This was very much their story. And everybody else was just kind of along for the ride, because you get to really see the Bad Batch work in action, particularly after the gunship gets shot down and Rex is saying, well, we just need to create a perimeter and hold the hold the perimeter and wear the clone army down, the droid army down. And the Bad Batch is we take a much different approach to dealing with droids. And you see them just absolutely tear a couple of battalions to pieces in a matter of minutes. So.
Yes, it kind of feels, what's the word? I'll let down to Rex. Like, look at this guy. They can do a lot of crazy shit more than we can.
And manner speaking, yeah, they really can. The thing that the other thing that I like about the Bad Batch is this is a team of clones that by all rights probably should not have been left, and manner speaking, alive and everything within the Grand Army of the Republic. But for whatever reason, and I've got a couple of theories. I want to bounce them off of you and see what you think. One of my theories is Palpatine had a hand in keeping the Bad Batch alive and getting them equipped, and they were implanted with those organic chips like the rest of the clones were. And I get the very distinct impression that they had a long track record, especially during Order 66 and afterwards, of working for the Empire.
What's the second one?
The second one is if you look at the makeup of their team, they are very well suited for going on, for lack of a better term, assassination missions to take out Jedi or take out enemies of the Empire, and in particular of Palpatine. And they were one of those tools that he had at his disposal and everything. And they didn't particularly much care who they were working for and everything, whether it was the Republic or the Empire. So, your thoughts on those 2 points?
I can see that, but I don't know. I don't want to think that Palpatine had everything according to plan. I will hope that they are not that they did not survive thanks to the Palpatine keeping them in secret. But I think someone else was keeping them secret. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I like to think someone had hand in other than Palpatine. Maybe Count Dooku. I don't know.
That's a distinct possibility. Well, and let me go one step further, and I think kind of clarify what I was saying. It wasn't so much that Palpatine deliberately had them engineered, but more so this was a happy accident that came along, and he was like, "Ooh, here's another toy I can have at my disposal to take out the Jedi at some point."
I can understand
because if you remember, the Kaminoans or Kaminoans, however way you want to pronounce it, were starting to experiment with how they could alter the clones and everything, and this was one of those particular outcomes of that experimentation. The Bad Batch was not a deliberate creation of the cloners, but what they came up with was a group of mutated clones that had certain affectations or skill sets that were very useful for the clones, and in particular for the clone army. And by accident, I would say Palpatine's like, yeah, I'm going to tap these guys periodically, and I'm going to use them for my own ends. And that's the impression that I got and everything with the Bad Batch. Because the other point and everything that I've made in the past is anything, or it's something that I've thought over. If you look at the design of their shuttle that they use for their transport shuttle, it very much harkens back to the design of the shuttle that you see at the end of Revenge of the Sith that Palpatine uses when he goes to Mustafar to pick up Anakin. The wing design, the body design, and everything very much is similar to Palpatine's shuttle and everything. The only real difference is I think that this shuttle and everything had some modifications that were made to it that were done by the whoever designed the shuttles and everything for the Republic, and in particular Palpatine's shuttle and everything that he used and everything for his own ends. Obviously, the cockpit was extended and made bigger. The whole body of the shuttle was elongated. The wings had those solar panels and everything that you see on like TIE fighters and so on. So this very much doesn't have a Republic feel to it, a Republic military feel to it. It has more of a Imperial feel, design or aesthetic and everything to it. That's why I'm thinking the Bad Batch was being funded or equipped and everything by Palpatine's office and everything, the offices of the Supreme Chancellor, because he does have access to these sort of things, and he could either do it overtly or he could do it under the table and everything, because he had his fingers in a lot of places, and he had the resources to equip the Bad Batch in a way that he saw fit. So,
okay, let's carry on episode 2 and 3. So we find out that the Separatist was basically using Echo's plan, but Echo died in one of the missions. So how is he alive or not? So in the second episode, we see Rex going to Anakin Skywalker for help. Yes, he knows the rest is a suicide mission, and there's a good chance that he's not alive. But we later find out that he actually is alive. And I also liked in episode 2, I think, the conversation between Anakin and Padme. I didn't mind the whole graffiti thing of hot Padme. I was like,
yeah,
that's not necessary.
Yeah, that honestly, I think that was a good trade-off, truth be told. And I'm not going to get into my own personal opinion about it, but honestly, I think that scene between Anakin and Padme had a lot more weight. It was a lot more essential to the story than seeing a pin-up and everything, or nose art of Padme on the side of the Bad Batch's shuttle, truth be told. So, but honestly, I had watched that deleted scene, and it didn't bother me that they had something like that in the episode. I thought it was kind of tongue-in-cheek and everything. It was a little bit racier than what we had seen in Clone Wars previously. But at the same time, I do appreciate that scene between Anakin and Padme and their conversation there, because honestly, it helps build the relationship between the two of them. It gives you more depth to their two characters. And of course, you do have that little quip by Obi-Wan as Anakin and Rex are going on the mission, and Anakin, or not Anakin, but Obi-Wan hollers to Anakin, well, at least hope you told Padme I said hi. And I love that. I love the dynamic between Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's one of my favorite parts of the Clone Wars. I'm hoping we get to see more of it down the road. It's just a simple question of when we'll get to see more of that and everything. I'm going to wager that the next story arc that they have, we will get to see Anakin and Obi-Wan either in conversation or in combat and everything. Either one's fine with me, because honestly, anytime you get Anakin and Obi-Wan on screen and they're talking and they're working together and everything, it's always a good thing. Because again, the one thing that I love about the fact that they did bring back Clone Wars for this final season is we get to see a lot of those story threads and those character arcs get tied up and everything and get resolved, because we kind of got left hanging at the end of season 6 of Clone Wars. So this continuation, this final chapter, this final season gives us a little more time with all these characters that we have come to know and love in the prequels, whether you love them or hate them. That's neither here nor there. But it gives you more time with these characters, with the Jedi, with the clones, even with the villains. Because honestly, the Clone Wars have had some great villains, not just Darth Maul in particular, but you've had more time with Count Dooku, you've had more time with General Grievous, you had all the other separatist commanders and so on. You had and you had a lot of very. Say one more time.
Asajj Ventress.
Oh yeah, Asajj Ventress. Yeah, I didn't mean to forget her or anything, but the one thing I did like about this particular story arc is we had a very interesting character in the clone commander of Admiral Trench. I can't remember the name of his species, but I had seen his species in either some fan art or in a comic book or something, and he has a very arachnoid design to his character, and that was something that I very much appreciated. Not to mention, you see that he has been altered with cybernetics, whether it was voluntary or because he had been injured in previous battles or whatever. I loved Admiral Trench. I thought he was a very good villain. I thought he was a good character for this particular story arc. Not only that, but you get some time with Wat Tambor, who's one of the heads of the Techno Union Guild. And that whole back and forth play between those two and everything was something that I very much enjoyed and everything between Wat Tambor and General Trench. And I don't know if you picked up on this, Milan, or not, but that one clone or that one droid commander that was on the flagship, anytime General Trench gave a order, it used a particular phrase, "as you command," which is kind of a callback to the original Battlestar Galactica, the old 1980s show, not the reboot that they did a number of years ago.
No, I didn't notice that because I hadn't watched Battlestar Galactica.
Okay, well, it's something that if you're not familiar with it, you're going to miss. But it's one of those little Easter eggs that they put in there, and everything for people that love sci-fi and everything. I'm one of those people. I watched the original BSG, and I watched the reboot that they did back in the early 2000s. And truthfully, I like the reboot better because the other one was campy as all get out. But I like these villains and everything for this arc because they're not cookie cutter. They're not just one note, one beat villains. They're actually really good. They're comparable to the heroes or the protagonists that they're going up against. Even though they have an advantage because you've got the fact that the Separatists had captured Echo, had resuscitated him, had modified him, and had plugged his brain into this machine and everything. We're using him to get an advantage over the clone army and the Jedi. And there was one moment in particular that I liked from the first. I'm going to kind of going back to the first episode, but you're starting to see some doubt grow in the mind of Rex and everything because he has seen so many of his brother clones being murdered or being killed during this war. But at the same time, he realizes if it wasn't for the war, they would have never existed. They would never have been brought into being. And I know a lot of people have said that the Star Wars movies were the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, but I would say that the Clone Wars are very much the tragedy of the clones themselves. I think because they're just as much victims in this whole mess as everybody else is. They're just tools of Palpatine's design.
Yes, so. I can agree with that. Now you're giving me a flashback to season 6, first 5 episodes of Fives.
Yeah.
Where got cried.
Yeah, because you've got Tup and Fives, and they're trying to figure out why in the heck this chip is in their heads. And they get so close to the answer, and they're almost there to revealing to the Jedi who's behind everything. And just like that, it's gone. they lose the lead and everything just falls to pieces, which it obviously had to for Revenge of the Sith to have worked at all, but at the same time, you feel for Rex and everything because he is so desperate in these 4 episodes, or the first 3 episodes, or well, particularly the first 2 episodes, to once he realizes that signal, that algorithm that him and Tech have discovered is Echo, that he's like, he becomes very driven, he becomes very single-minded, he doesn't care what he has to do, he's going to get his brother back.
Excuse me for a moment.
No, that's fine. So, well, anyway. This would be so much easier if I had another person in the channel.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. It's all good.
Let's see, where did we left off?
We were talking about Rex and him. Yeah, Echo. Yeah.
Rex and Echo. Yeah. In that picture alone, you see that he misses his old friends, soldiers that follow him, and you get really kind of emotional, gut punching, because most of the clones have died. Fives has died. Echo was supposed to be dead, but we find out he's not. So there's a little glimpse of hope. And so we get the Bad Batch, Rex, Anakin going to the planet to rescue Echo.
Yeah.
They do it, but in the process, they bring a whole lot of trouble to the citizen of the planet and to themselves.
Yeah. Well, I think the planet's called Skeko Minor or anything, if I remember correctly.
Yes, Skeko Minor.
The thing I liked about those 2 particular episodes is you had that scene in the first episode where you saw the Bad Batch working in concert with one another. But in those other 2 episodes, you saw them very much working on their own, and you realize just how well equipped and how well trained they all are and everything in their particular fields. And none of these guys none of these guys can they can very much handle themselves on their own, but when you combine them all together, they become a very unstoppable force, in a manner of speaking, not to use a pun or anything here, but obviously Wrecker has his skill set, Tech does, Crosshair, Hunter, and so on. So the seeing them work on their own, and even seeing the Bad Batch work with Anakin, was actually kind of a cool moment and everything as well, because you've got a very rebellious Jedi, or Jedi General in this particular instance, and the Bad Batch is like, this is not your atypical Jedi, and they're like, this guy knows how to handle himself and everything. I get the impression that this was the Bad Batch's first real opportunity to see how a Jedi can function in combat. And in particular, when you've got a less than conventional Jedi in the person of Anakin Skywalker, who doesn't necessarily play by the normal rules and everything or within the structure of the clone army and everything, or the Grand Army of the Republic, more accurately. They were very much impressed and everything. They even, if I remember correctly, they even said as much and everything at the end of that battle and everything there in the alien village on Skeko Minor.
Let's Did you get a little annoyed by the character of Wrecker? Because I got a little tired of his jokes.
After a little bit, yeah, they did get a little tiresome, but at the same time, that is his character in a manner of speaking. Everything. That's what his mindset is. He can knuckle. You have to have that focus for him. You have to have Hunter or one of the other clones there, but in particular Hunter there to kind of focus him on what he's supposed to be doing. But I can see how his jovial side, his comedic side, could wear a little thin after a while. And I think that's why you have the other characters there to kind of offset. I wouldn't necessarily say that Wrecker was badly written.
No, not that. Just that his jokes got a little tired. I like him overall, but I don't think he's a bad character.
No, I think you could say that he was whoever wrote the comedic bits for Wrecker could have downplayed it a little bit more and everything, in particular in certain instances and everything where the situation was seemingly more dire, more dangerous and everything, and more serious, and left the jovial Joker Wrecker to the side for a while. And now the one moment, and I know we're jumping ahead, but we're not necessarily spoiling anything at this point. I do love the moment and everything at the end of episode 4 where Anakin hands that remote detonator to Wrecker, and he's like, here. He's like, here, this is for you. He's like, you mean I get to blow up something? Oh, thank you. And he pushes the button, and he's so darn happy because all he wants to do is blow up stuff.
He cried, this is the happiest day of my life. Click.
Yeah, really. Yeah, and that whole separatist capital ship goes sky high. One comment I do want to make. I love the fact that they played that moment where Tech and Rex extract Echo out of that suspension tube, and I am glad they played it very somberly, very melancholy, and they didn't play it. They didn't do any overdone, cringy moments or anything. I'm glad that they kept it serious. I'm glad that they kept that moment very heavy, because honestly, any other way would have seemed out of place.
Yes, that as well. But you have to remember, this is pre-Disney era, so that they have to keep it with the tone of the show that it was made before and they took over. Mm-hmm. So that's why most of the moments are not cringy. They are well played and well placed in scenes. So that's my opinion about rescuing Echo and to see if he's still.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other point and everything that I'll bring up here, and somebody had mentioned this previously, and honestly, I think it's very true, is the fact that you get a kind of a Borg vibe or of how Echo was modified and everything, like the Borg from Star Trek, Next Generation. Because if you look, go ahead.
I'm haven't finished the Next Generation. I'm currently watching the first season. I'm on episode 12.
Oh, okay. Question: did you see any of the Next Generation movies, in particular First Contact?
No, I have not. I'm trying to watch on when it was released. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll. Have you watched anything of Star Trek Picard?
No, because I want to avoid spoilers for the Next Generation.
And I understand. Okay. There is this. I'll try and give you the short version. There is this race of techno. They're biologically enhanced beings that have technological adaptations done to their person, and they're called the Borg. Um, if you take a look at the probe that's put on the end of Echo's one arm, that's very much that's kind of in the same vein. Hold on one second. I'll try and I can pull up let me see if I can pull up an image or anything to kind of give you a frame of reference. Star Trek. Okay. Okay, hold on one second. Screen share, Chrome tab. Okay. That's the Borg.
Oh, yes, I see it.
Okay. As you can see, they've got mechanical alterations, very extensive mechanical alterations done to their body. And actually, I hope I'm not spoiling anything major, but Borg does get captured and turned into a Borg at one point during the series. Everything. So, but if you notice in this picture, it's in the middle row. It's the one to the will be on the right. This Borg has a mechanical arm, in a manner of speaking, everything, and they've got a lot of cybernetics implanted into their head and everything. And what they did with Echo and everything is they kind of harkened back to that same idea of. I don't want to say that they necessarily copied the Borg per se, but I think Echo's design or the cybernetic implants that were placed on him do very much harken back to the Borg aesthetic and everything from Star Trek Next Generation.
I wouldn't be surprised. They copied in one of the episodes storyline from Sam Samurai in Clone Wars and in Mandalorian. So
I know exactly what you're talking about. The where they have to go help the village of the everything farmers or whatever. So yeah, I know that's the common thing they've done with several different episodes or shows or anything in the Star Wars universe.
Or even I think season 1, the one with giant monster is basically like Godzilla with little sprinkle of King Kong.
The Zillo Beast. I think it was in. I think it was in like season 3, maybe. When they have this.
I'm pretty sure it was season 1.
No, no, the Zillo Beast doesn't show up until much later because.
Okay, I know.
It's much later in the war and everything. It was either season 3 or season 4 and everything, maybe, of Clone Wars and everything, where they have the 2-episode arc and everything involving the Zillo Beast and everything, because the clone army's there on Malastare and they use that basically it's an electromagnetic pulse bomb on a droid army, and what ends up happening is it creates this huge crater and everything on the surface, and they find this huge cavern underneath, and in that cavern is a Zillo Beast. And what ends up happening, and I know we're kind of getting off on a rabbit trail here just a little bit, but what ends up happening is
season 2.
Was it season 2? Okay.
Yeah, season 2.
Okay. Well, either way. Well, you know the long and short of it and everything. Basically, Palpatine's wanting to use his little beast armor and everything for his own personal ends and everything, but he's kind of playing it off as he's wanting to use it for the clone army and everything, which is a load of bunk and everything because they realize that the Zilbeast's armor and everything, or its hide and everything, is impervious to lightsabers and even to a certain extent to blaster fire. So
Are we ever gonna see that payoff? Because now I'm curious, are they going to use that as a plot point in this season?
They potentially could. Anything. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't or anything. I don't know if they've ever revisited it or not, but they essentially could and everything. I'd be interested to see how that all played out. If they were ever able to crack the code of how they replicate that durability from the Zilbeast's hide and everything into a some sort of armor plating for the ships or suits of armor for clones or whatever, or for the Imperial Army in general. Because you can imagine that Palpatine had all sorts of Imperial scientists or Republic scientists that eventually got folded into the Imperial military working on that particular project. I mean, shoot, it could have been a project that they were working on there on Scarif. It could have been one of those files that they were going through, for all we know. But to kind of get back on course here, the other, because we kind of went off on a big rabbit trail.
Yes,
but it was a meaningful, it was a useful rabbit trail. So, the other thing that I appreciate about this story arc, and I kind of brought this up previously, I like the fact that that fight there on Skyko Meyer at the end of episode 3 was predominantly done without dialogue. It was all done through music, and I honestly think that was a nice touch because previously we've not, at least as far as I can recall, have we ever had a section of an episode or an entire episode that, well, okay, at least a part of an episode where there was no dialogue, that it was all done through music. So I was wondering,
not in the Filoni's Clone Wars, but in the animated one between episode 2 and 3, we had made.
Oh yeah, the Jenny Tarkovsky shorts. Yeah, I remember those very well. So yeah, I think they had done that because they had very little dialogue and everything, and I think that might have been their intention and everything with this particular episode, with episode 3 of Clone of season 7, was that they wanted at least part of an episode that was done with nothing but music, which was a nice callback to the animated shorts that they did in between 2 and 3. So, but then of course you've got the last episode of there was, okay, I know I'm backtracking a big way, but you probably remember this too. There was one tracking shot that they did in the first episode of the season where you have a tracking shot from a gunship approaching that command post or that bunker there on an axis, and it tracks from all the way from the gunship landing and goes straight into the bunker. And I loved that shot. I absolutely loved it. It was a great piece of cinematography and everything, and animation that they did there and everything. Do you remember that particular shot or not?
Not particularly. Spotlight Jeff's comment.
Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on 1 second. And Planet Cybermax remind me of the $6 Million Man. Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah, I remember the $6 million man too, Jeff, so don't feel bad. Yeah, I could see where you could draw a parallel with that and everything for how Echo was designed. So, but kind of moving into the final episode and everything, or well, the 4th episode rather of this arc. I like this idea that there was mistrust with the clone, the Bad Batch, between Bad Batch and Echo, and of course Rex probably had his own doubts, not to mention the Jedi probably did as well, because he had been under the control of the Separatists for so long. They were wondering, is he still loyal to the Republic? Is he a plant at this point? Did they let us capture him? Or whatever the case may be. So, Milan, your thoughts on that?
Yes, the guy was even questioning, are we sure he's whole there? Because he was for so long under influence of the separatists that he might not be all there.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically the honest questioning whether is he still a good guy or is he a bad guy? He even says it. Was there any doubt? Yeah, there was.
Yeah, very much so. Well, and they even have that final moment there at the end of episode 3, where Wat Tambor is talking about them recouping their investment and everything, and it almost gives you the idea, because you have Wat Tambor make that comment, and then you have them zoom that close up on Echo's face, and you're wondering, is he on the up and up, or is there some sort of override command in Echo's circuitry or whatever, something that they implanted in Echo that would cause him to flip and work for the Separatists instead of working for the Republic? But obviously, at the end of episode 4, he does prove, in fact, that he is still on the side of the Republic. He's not on the side of the Separatists whatsoever, because he puts his neck on the line and everything to help. Well, he risks his own life, which is what a soldier normally would do. But the fact that he's under such scrutiny, and in the end and everything, he proves that he is still loyal to the Republic. And the Bad Batch is like, we respect you now. And I think that also was another nice touch and everything with the relationship between the Bad Batch and Echo.
I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I like that moment when Anakin Skywalker faces off Trench and said, "You're a Jedi. You can't touch me." Cuts off his arm. You were saying, I'm paraphrasing, but something along those lines.
I did want to bring up that particular scene. I know some people have already talked about it, but I honestly love that. I very much appreciate that moment between Anakin and Trench, because you see Anakin starting to divorce himself or separate himself just ever so slightly from the beliefs and ideology of the Jedi Code. And while he hasn't gone full dark Anakin yet, he hasn't turned into Darth Vader, you have this moment where Anakin turns very ruthless, and you see the foundations, or one of the building blocks of Vader's personality starting to come out in Anakin. Because Anakin doesn't fully embrace the dark side in that moment, but he's teetering right there on the edge, or you could even say he goes over the edge. When he cuts off Trench's arms, when he pretty much whops the floor with all the droid soldiers there on the bridge of that ship, and what have you. And Anakin is very no-nonsense in this moment because, well, for one, he does not want to see the planet of Anaxis get destroyed, and he's willing to go to whatever lengths need be taken to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, pretty much. What did you think about Mace Windu's speech to the droids? It wasn't my favorite part.
Honestly, I was sitting there thinking, what the hell are you saying, Mace? These are droids. They are programmed for one thing: to blow your head off. Droids. Okay, I'm gonna quote a movie you've probably seen, Milan. Terminator.
Yes,
the first one. They can't be bargained with. They can be reasoned with. They don't feel remorse or sympathy or pity, and they won't stop ever.
Calories.
Yeah, Kyle races to I think he says it to Sarah Connor.
Yes.
And
I just want to bring up your reaction to that scene was the same reaction Obi-Wan gave Luke to Mace. You can see his expression basically, what the hell are you blabbering on about?
yeah, I know, because up until this point, Mace Windu has not had any really bad character moments per se in the Clone Wars TV in the TV show, except for that story arc where they paired him with Jar Jar Binks of all people. Why him?
Yeah,
why pair a badass like Mace Windu with a ginormous klutz like Jar Jar Binks? And then Jar Jar Binks gets the girl. He gets the girl. By and large, I enjoyed the Clone Wars TV show. But any episode, no matter what length it is, that has Jar Jar Binks as a central character or a side character is cringy as all get out. And I'm thinking maybe Mace was around Jar Jar for too long in any particular instance, because that sounds like something that Jar Jar would say. And I'm thinking, what were the script writers thinking when they did that speech? These are droids. Now, if he had said it to clones, okay, that's one thing. They can be reasoned with to a certain extent. Droids cannot be reasoned with. They are programmed. They are hardwired for one thing and one thing only: killing clones and killing Jedi. That's it. and then for Mace Windu, Jeff Bezos. Just 1 second here. Yeah, but I think that ship flew. That ship sank a long time ago, Jeff. I hate to break it to you, man. I'm sorry. I really, truly am. I'm sorry. And I don't want to get off on a giant Jar Jar Binks rant here or anything, so we'll just kind of pull that back. But yeah, that speech by Mace there in episode 4 was just like, what the hell are you saying? Just cut their heads off. Now, unless he was just doing it to stall for time, which I could see that. Everything, he was just basically trying to buy the Bad Batch and Rex and Anakin extra time and everything by making that speech, which in essence could work by anything and buying the clones a few more moments to get in position or whatever. But at the same time, of all the things you could have said, I would have much rather Mace. Okay, I'm gonna have to go on camera for a minute and everything to kind of illustrate. I would have much rather Mace and everything been staying up on top of that crate's unignited lightsaber and just going to those droids, because that speech was just corny as all get out. I'm just like, no, that is not Mace Windu. Somebody temporarily swapped out Mace Windu's brain and put Jar Jar Binks' brain in there instead, or put somebody else's brain in Mace's head, because Mace Windu would never say anything that cringeworthily bad. I mean, even some of his dialogue in the prequels was not that bad. So, but, you know, you have, obviously, they're able to stop, and Mace and everybody works together, and they get that they deactivate that bomb and everything that Trench had planted there on that manufacturing that shipyard or whatever, because that's what an Axis essentially is. It's a giant shipyard for the Republic, and if Separatists had taken that planet out, whoo, Republic would have been in trouble. So, but I think episode 4 was a nice round out for this particular arc, and obviously you have Echo go off with the Bad Batch and kind of remove any potential for him to kind of turn or be exploited by the Separatists and everything. And heck, for all we know, Echo could have very well survived Order 66 and been used by Palpatine and everything down the road. We don't know. Because a cybernetically enhanced clone and everything is an interesting idea. Because I don't think it's one that they necessarily they had considered before. So, but any other thoughts you want to add, Mladen, or anything else you wanted to discuss?
I think we pretty much touch the crucial parts.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, and I just want to say thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. So,
thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. And hey, anytime you want to be on one of my streams or anything, you are always welcome. Obviously. So, for anybody who catches this on replay, I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Ambassadorial Wing. I will be having my 230 subscribers celebration stream this Saturday night at, I'm thinking around 8 or 8:30 Central Time. So be sure to tune in for that. We'll be discussing the films of one of the greats and everything, John Carpenter. So be sure to tune in for that. I know that Darth Lunga is going to be doing a karaoke night this evening, I think around 6:30 or so Central Time, so be sure to check him out as well. For those of you who have not subscribed, if you come across this, I hope that you enjoyed this stream. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. So, folks, that's all for right now. We'll catch you on the flip side, and until next time, this is the Ambassador and Mladen signing off.
Sign off.